So the topic. Do you like the topic idea of going off of your post last night about what's going on? Did he play golf or not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
Oh, by
I
the
don't
way,
know,
let me
America.
just say this real quick. And that is, this is Harrowings. We're going to turn up the surface a little bit with David A. Andelman from Andelman Unleashed. And we were just talking about whether our president played golf yesterday or not, or in this weekend. Go ahead, David.
Well, whether he did or didn't, he's certainly on a tear. Look, my feeling is we're at the point where America is taking on the world, and America being one man, namely Donald Trump. So, um, what do we have today? We have an American leader who is just beginning to implant a set of toxic changes that range from removing America from its leadership role among democracies to giving license to bad behavior and foisting his own special vision on the world in an increasingly pernicious fashion. And what I'm most worried about is that the world, and especially the media of the world, is becoming so accustomed to even accepting the reality that
Right.
he's only beginning to create that will be quite difficult to root out even after he's gone, whenever he's gone, if he's gone.
It is astonishing to me how everything is just sort of being steamrolled. Right? That's the way I'm feeling about it, that especially as I'm looking now, and you sent me out looking for the National Guard last time. I had not seen them the last time we talked, but I went down that day and found a little squad, or maybe a platoon, actually forming up and doing roll call for lunch, apparently, mess call, I guess, outside of on the south side of the Lincoln Memorial. And since then, I've seen them at Union Station, a couple of armored vehicles standing out front of Union Station, a squad, or again, maybe a platoon-sized group standing at the top of the metro entrance right across from the Postal Museum. There was a guy standing at the top of the metro escalators singing the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Nobody put their hand over their heart but me. I was astonished. But anyway, you get the point. And today, this morning, I mean, right outside the window of the coffee shop, there were a couple or three MPs going by in uniform. And we saw a number of others around DuPont Circle as I walked with a friend right before getting on for a brief time before coming on with you. So that's happening. And we seem to all be just okay with it. I have seen one protest. There's a thing called freedcproject.org. And they were banging pots and pans at the corner of 19th at Swan one evening when I was coming back from Trader Joe's over on 14th Street Northwest, a residential neighborhood. Why were they there, of all places? It didn't make any sense to me.
Well, it's pretty safe for them. Look, I'm obviously concerned about that. What I'm most concerned about, and I look at the world rather than just simply America and its place in the world.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned is that he is giving license to, a whole lot of, unfortunate and pernicious dictators and forces around the world that will be particularly difficult to root out because they will be implanted in systems that have virtually no real democratic foundations. But he's giving license to them. And you look around Asia, you can look at. The biggest thing right now this week overseas is the Shanghai conference that Xi Jinping has convened in Tianjin, China, and you have Russia, which you would expect. You have China, which you would expect. You have eventually North Korea is going to show up. He's ready. He's going to be in later this week. But all of a sudden now you have Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, showing up for this group. I mean, basically, Trump has forced India into the arms of China, where their traditional, long-standing, decades and decades, maybe centuries long, animosity is now suddenly forcing the two of them together. How is that supposed to be good for America and for any democratic spirit, or for America's economy, or the world's economy for that matter, to force those two together? And then, for obviously, India seems to have certain leanings toward Russia as well. Russia's going to be there. Putin's going to be there. So you have Putin, you have Xi Jinping, and you have Narendra Modi, all lined up. That should be very scary, even to Trumpers, but apparently it's not, and that's what worries me more than anything else.
I think
The new
that's what
alignments,
people.
new alignments around the world.
Right, we have to wake people up to that, and that's why I have you on board here with
Yeah.
your vast experience as a journalist around the world, and you know how the world sees us. So, talk more about Modi being driven into the arms of the Chinese,
Well,
and what that means.
tariffs the first thing that did it. Tariffs the first thing that did it.
Yep,
But what particularly drove him away from America and into the arms of the only other country that's really realistic for them to is Trump basically saying that he settled the conflict between India and Pakistan. Now, this is a conflict that has gone back literally to the foundations of India and Pakistan when the British left it's almost a century ago. I mean, it's just stunning that Trump is taking the credit for that, and in fact, there really is no. I mean, they stopped fighting along that border, but they were going to do that anyway, probably. Either that or they were going to escalate to a nuclear exchange, which is not
exactly.
impossible, by the way. I've been in both countries, and I know for a fact that each country has their nuclear missile, and they have substantial nuclear missile um, um, uh, arsenals. They are each their principal targets are on each other rather than on Russia or China or even America or whoever.
Exactly.
So for Trump to say that he's done that and take that away from Modi and make Modi have to answer to his opposition in India, I mean, it's stunningly. He has no conception of how the world works or what the forces are or the concerns are of other countries, and that
Right.
is what is most toxic, I think.
And that's really should be in the State Department's hands anyway, at some
Well,
level.
it should be. It should be in the state and the National Security Council. And he's eviscerated both organizations. He's eviscerated both the National Security Council by firing a whole lot of people, and he's
Right.
eviscerated the State Department equally for the same with the same goal in mind to basically make it smaller. And then he's put a person who has basically been a senator from from Florida with
Right.
no sense of international scope or whatever. He's put him in the role that was filled by people like Henry Kissinger's Zbigniew Brzezinski,
Brzezinski.
I mean Jake Sullivan. I mean, you can go on and on. Even
Mhm.
Condoleezza Rice, if you want to look for a Republican. These were people with true, you know, Kissinger. He was my professor at Harvard, believe it or not, back in the
Tell me
'60s.
about that. Yeah.
And he had this concept called Weltanschauung. He said any president
Yes.
does not have Weltanschauung, which translates into worldview.
Right.
They simply ping pong from crisis to crisis around the world, and they never get anywhere really, basically.
Because they don't know
And
what they're doing, right? Because they
right,
don't have the cultural, historical context.
some presidents really had. I mean, and a lot of it has to
Mhm.
do with who they choose as their national security advisor. But look at the chuckleheads that Trump has chosen as his national security advisor, and
Who
then
is it?
doesn't listen to them. It's really quite stunning.
Well, that's a fact. I mean, the whole thing about ego and focusing all of his resources of his administration on trying to basically do warfare internally on how he has been perceived in the press,
Yeah,
right?
and we're going to have a very interesting person on. Well, we had a great guy on last Friday as for our Friday conversation. We have a
Oh, good.
Friday Zoom conversation, I call it, for an hour every Friday afternoon. You've been on it, I think, briefly.
Just a few
And,
minutes. Yeah. At
right,
the
right,
tail
right.
end. So finally we're there.
For our paying subscribers.
Mhm.
Last week we had Julian Zelizer, the great globalist from Princeton. And this coming Friday, we're having Stanley Pignal, who is he writes the Charlemagne column for the Economist and is their Brussels bureau chief. He's writing the Charlemagne column, and he happens, by the coincidence, to be a direct patrilineal descendant of Charlemagne.
Me too.
And, well, there you are, your cousins, or some such.
Several times over, actually. When you get that far back, your
I think Charlemagne
genealogy
was
doesn't
from
exist.
I think he was prolific, actually, Charlemagne. But anyway,
Yeah, well,
so
an interesting character, right?
so and I've known Stanley since he was literally a toddler and a schoolmate of my son. So
Oh, wow.
so at any rate, we have these are interesting people who have really incredible perspectives, and all of them kind of share my horror about what's going on. And I mean,
Right.
Stanley writes about this in Europe now. I mean, the Europeans are beside themselves. They're trying to figure out what they can possibly do to, and each country has different problems, of course. I mean, Switzerland isn't even in Europe, and all of a sudden they're discovering that all of the Swiss watches are going to have these huge tariffs on them. Now,
Going on.
a lot of them, right? I mean, a lot of people who buy expensive Swiss watches don't really care if they're going to have to pay an extra, $2,000 for their watch. But and it's very interesting what the Swiss have done, by the way. Apparently, a lot of the Swiss watchmakers had huge stockpiles in China and Hong Kong of their watches. They took them all from China and Hong Kong and moved them into the U.S. just ahead of the tariff day so that they could avoid the tariffs. So they're now all sitting in the U.S. So for, probably for a couple of years now, they may actually be immune to these tariffs. But that's what countries and companies around the world are having to figure out now. How can we avoid the horrors of Trump? And
4 years,
that is
right.
right, 3.5 more. But still,
Mm.
imagine what he's done in the first 7 months of his power. I mean, it's very scary.
It is, and I'm glad you're having this, conversation on Friday on Zoomversation, right? I wanna basically hammer that in a little bit. To be a paid subscriber of David A. Andelman and Andelman Unleashed is well worth it. You get a huge newsletter, that's weekly, right?
It's weekly, and I also have they get a free copy of my book, A Red Line in the Sand, or they can actually get it in Arabic as well. And the
Yeah.
Arabic is just out, so which is exciting. Yeah, I
Is
have
that
some
it
Arabic.
behind you? I see it over your shoulder, don't I?
Yes, that
The red
is.
line in the
That's it.
sand?
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
And we talked about the red line, like the one that held up very well between South Korea and North Korea and the other red lines around the world. Um, you know, nation states and their competitiveness has been on my mind quite a bit. I went to one of these artificial intelligence conferences. Condoleezza Rice was one of the speakers. H.R. McMaster was speaking as well. I caught his speech. I missed Condoleezza's. But it was on remaining our national competitiveness in the field of artificial intelligence. And I think China is going to eat our lunch there in a lot of ways. And there's a vision I have in my head about transcending a lot of the squabbles that are really horrifying and the repercussions of them to the vast majority of the population of human beings are horrific. So while all these things are happening at the leadership level that we've been talking about, how do you see the future from your lens of having been in the front lines for a long time? Future vision for you.
Well, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, the world has to figure out how they're going to deal with it with all of this over the next 3.5. But not only how they're going to deal with this over the next 3.5 years, how they're going to deal with it way beyond even Trump. I mean, when
Right.
Trump is going to leave and he has said this, I want to leave a legacy behind me, and he's trying to cement a legacy that really will be very difficult to disimplant. I mean, just as an example, I mean,
Right.
I went through a few things. In Poland, for instance, this past week, the the new Polish far right wing president has taken on Trump colors, and he's now decided that he is going to remake the judiciary in his own image. So he's taking control over who can be chosen for the judiciary, rather than this committee that for decades has chosen the new uh, judges of the courts in the federal courts in Poland. And he has said quite openly, he said, "I'm going to be taking on following the model of Donald Trump." I mean, that is frightening. I mean, and that's only one country. I mean, you have so many other. Just as an example, the new prime minister of not so new now. He's been there for over a year now. Of Slovakia. It happens to have been invited to the conference in the Shanghai conference by Xi Jinping, and he's going to have a private meeting with Putin today. I mean, can you imagine this? I mean, this is Slovakia. I mean, it's bad enough we have Viktor Orban, who's the best pal
Right.
of
Right. In Hungary.
Hungary, the president of Hungary, best pal of Putin. But now we have Slovakia right next door. Once a long democratic bastion, when it was part of Czechoslovakia, and after it, received it, got its won its independence. It's really, I mean, it's really very scary. All of these trends that have been set in motion, and once these people have been implanted in these countries, it's going to be they will
Yep.
develop systems and using the Trump playbook in many respects to keep themselves in power, and that's what's most frightening.
So amplifying your signal about the dangers of that, how do you see us being able to circumvent it, mitigate these risks?
Well, I'm not sure we can at this point. I mean, we just have to play along. I mean, Trump is getting his you know, how many in the first in the last month or so, at least two major countries have called in American ambassadors to call them on the carpet for truly undiplomatic things that they have done. So, Charlie Kushner, who was, Trump's um, literally felon father-in-law of his daughter, um,
Right.
he, he was summoned by the French Foreign Ministry, the Quai d'Orsay, because he wrote this really insulting op-ed, opened letter, actually, that was printed in the Wall Street Journal, which is circulated in France, um, uh, denouncing Macron's anti-Semitic tones and what he's encouraging for anti-Semitism in France. I mean, no American ambassador should be interfering in the affairs of a foreign country like that. So he gets summoned in to be called on the carpet. I mean, he doesn't care. And what does
Right.
he know about France? I mean, it's really quite stunning that he is even ambassador to France. He didn't even speak the language. It's quite appalling. And then the American ambassador to Denmark was called in by the Danish Foreign Ministry
Oh, good.
because apparently Trump has these individuals in Greenland trying to stir up, anti-Denmark sentiment in Greenland. I mean, which is part of Denmark because Trump wants to take it over.
I know, and that's near and dear to my heart because I spent 2 years living in Copenhagen, and the Danish Foreign Ministry actually, got my work visa walked through very
Mm.
rapidly. There's a law firm over there that did that for me in the Danish Foreign Ministry anyway. Uh,
It's really
but
it's
I
very
still want solutions, I still wanna look at you don't think we can uproot this or do anything about it. Now we know it.
well. We can make efforts. I mean, we shouldn't stop trying. There's no question about that. I mean,
That's it.
and the next immediate issue is the UN General Assembly, which takes place every year in September in New York. Now, it turns out, first of all, Palestine won't have a representative there for the first time in a very long time because they're the Palestinian ambassador and the entire delegation, and the president of Palestine, who does not happen to be in Gaza at all. They have been denied visas to come to the United States for the General Assembly session. Now, never before has the head of a delegation like that, an entire delegation, been banned from the U.S. for a General Assembly session. I mean, Fidel Castro used to come, for the General Assembly session every year. Yasser Arafat would come. I mean, all of these people would come because it was not the United States they were coming to. They were coming to the United Nations, which is a separate nation, effectively,
Right.
that happens to be located within the confines of the United States. I mean, they have their own passports, UN passports,
Right.
UN people, but they can't get visas if you're Palestinian. No person with a basic Palestinian passport can come to America anymore. All right,
Oh, we
so
can't helicopter them in?
I mean, so you have that, and then you have, for instance, Macron is planning, and the Germans, Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, are planning to recognize Palestine at the UN General Assembly session. So Trump is now questioning whether he wants to even come at all. So how do you deal with that? There would be no American president addressing the UN General Assembly in the fall. That also is unprecedented. Now, it's true that yeah, I mean, actually, the interesting thing is Putin could come because, although there are a lot of countries he can't visit because he is under indictment and sought by the International Criminal Court for his actions in Ukraine and war crimes. Um, the the um, the the United States is not a signatory to that, so in theory, he could come to the United Nations. I suspect he probably won't, but nevertheless, he could, and the Palestinians can't.
That's unprecedented, as you mentioned, and I don't know that I've caught that in the media. Have you caught
It
that in the mainstream media?
it's minor notes. That's the problem. There's just so much. There's such a tsunami of horrors going on that the media has just kind of thrown up its hands in many respects and said we have limited space and limited concentration from our readers. So you have to come to places like Andelman Unleashed to find out things like that.
That's right, and Harrowings, because this is harrowing
And
times.
Harrowings. It is very
And
harrowing.
the main reason that I like to have you on here is to open up these things, amplify that signal through the noise. And I highly recommend people subscribe to both of us in
Yep.
order that we can keep doing this kind of thing and that you do this kind of thing, you people in the audience. I'm not following the comments too closely, but if people do have comments or questions, throw them in there.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything yet.
Okay.
So, if anybody does have any questions or something, I see Bathrobe Guy is in here,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
greeting
That's
people
one of my
for
faithful.
me. It's very helpful. I have him on occasion. So let's get back to the Palestinian not being able to go to the UN General Assembly. I'm really interested to see what's happening outside the UN General Assembly. I think that people need to get into action. And I'm not seeing the protests I'm expecting to see around DC, for instance. We talked about that a little bit in our pregame where I was gone live a little early. And by the way, I'm going to be respectful of your time. We're going to wrap in 12 minutes.
Okay.
But um, what do you think? What do you think will help? I mean, one of the things, let me just jump this in here. I just ran across something about the Trilateral Commission's papers on the threats to democracy from the 60s. And in that time period, the problem they were seeing was that Wall Street lawyers and bankers were working with Truman, to form the New World Order after World War II. And that in the 60s, democracy started to work. People were organizing, and there was actually pressure to end the Vietnam War, and something that you were intimately involved in towards the tail end of that, right? You were in Southeast Asia. What?
I was in Cambodia and Laos for the fall of both countries to the communists.
There you go.
I
So,
was supposed to go to I was supposed to go to I was supposed to go to Vietnam, and the Times sent me for months total immersion to learn Vietnamese at Berlitz, and I never got there because by the time I spent some time in Cambodia, Saigon was falling. So my baggage got there, but I didn't. They got the bags out, fortunately. But I
because you
wound
were
up.
in Phnom Penh.
I was in Phnom Penh. It was supposed to be a week or two to hook up with Shanberg, and wound up being 4 months, January through April, when the Khmer Rouge came in. And I left there and went almost straight to. I covered the evacuation from Vietnam from the Clark Air Base in the Philippines, and then went straight to Laos and covered the fall of Laos to the Pathet Lao, and then set up the Times Bureau in Bangkok.
And you had just come off of being taught by Kissinger at Harvard, right? In the
Well,
60s,
I mean, yeah, like
earlier 60s,
a decade before. This was in
decade before,
74.
50s.
Yeah, yeah, in the 60s, right.
Oh, 74. It was in the 60s.
Right.
Well, do you see the possibility of organization of Americans to do anything about any of this?
Well, there are all these organizations. There's No Kings. There's a whole lot of organizations like that are trying to do things. The problem is the Democratic Party, in my view, is just so fragmented at this point. I mean, it's really about 3 or 4 different parties. I mean, this system would do very well in France, actually, where there are about 4 or 5 left wing parties and 2 or 3 center parties and 3 or 4 right wing parties, and it. So the result is that Macron's probably going to have to appoint another government by the end of next week. Um, and yeah, I mean, if another government falls, it's really, I mean, it's going to be begin feeling like what it was before De Gaulle came in. Now,
Okay,
and this was back in the 50s, when you was
right.
having a revolving door presidency, every 3 or 4 months.
Hmm.
It's not a good thing for Western democracy, and now increasingly, with Trump in power and to his supporters, um, doing a great job. I mean, just doing everything that he had promised. The right wing in Europe is really taking on some force, and in Britain you have Nigel Farage, and these crazies are the really far right. They're acquiring some real force. In Germany, the alternatives for Deutschland, they're getting some real power, and in Brussels, the far right is getting some real power. And people still do worry about Le Pen in France, being a candidate in another 4 years, 3 years for president. So,
And in Italy, for that matter, the right wing.
yeah, I mean, Italy is interesting because she has not been as you know dedicatedly determinedly right wing as some feared when first she came in.
Right.
She's a realist. I mean, she has a background that is, neo-fascist, effectively, because she's worked for the party that succeeded Mussolini, or worked for him when she was very young. But as prime minister, she's been, she has not pandered to the really far right in Italy yet. So I'm not totally. I have problems with a lot of the things she's done, but internationally, I mean, she did show up with all of the other European leaders to try to push Trump into doing the right thing on with Putin, and that's a good that's good. I could not have seen Viktor Orban doing that.
Yeah, what did you think about that, summit that happened just after Putin's Alaska visit with, Trump, and then the European leaders all managed to show up in the White House with Zelensky? What was
Yeah,
your take on that?
that was very good. I think that was absolutely the right thing to do. The unfortunate thing, of course, it hasn't moved Putin at all. And Russia has just taken. I mean, Russia's just in the driver's seat right now. It seems to me in Ukraine, and it's very frightening.
Well, what
And
about their losses?
huh? They what?
What about the losses that they're incurring? And
Well, but they're a big country. They can handle those losses. What they did do, and the Institute for the Study of War, which I rely very heavily on, they're a very good think tank based in Washington, with really a global perspective. They were saying that in fact, Putin used this. He eased up on the attacks before to make himself look very good before Anchorage. And then all of a sudden but during that time, he managed to stockpile huge numbers of drones and um, offensive drones and missiles. And now he's embarking on a campaign to just completely destroy Ukraine's infrastructure, and hoping that will so demoralize the Ukrainian people that they'll throw up their hands and get rid of Zelensky, which is his first priority, and then quote negotiate with him. So it's very scary. The Ukrainians need us now more than ever before, and they're seeing us less than ever.
well, I'm glad to be able to amplify your voice, through the noise here, and we do have let's see, about it's a pretty good rate. We got about 29 other people have logged
Oh, excellent.
listening.
That's very often more than I get on my Zoom for say. But then again, I go for an hour, and I insist that they be paid members. Sorry, I have to give my paid members something.
That's right, and you need that, as well to keep your subscriptions going for all the news media you're soaking up
Exactly.
for us
Those
and
are
filtering.
expensive. Some of these are very expensive, and they deserve it. I mean, to
Yep.
subscribe to Le Monde and The Economist and Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung and so on, Haaretz, and fortunately, you don't have to subscribe to Pravda you know um, or People's Daily in Beijing, but and I do look at them. And by the way, I do publish some of the things that they say when they're important and relevant, which nobody else really does. Nobody else really looks at them to see what are they telling their own people, which I think is very interesting.
Yes, it is very interesting because then you can sort of formulate what a person's perspective will be, and then you can maybe actually begin to have conversations across borders. That's another thing I think we can do here on Harrowings. I had a fellow from the Gambia joining into the last conversation. I've had a lot of them coming on to me, but who are not necessarily just here for they're trying to scam. Like,
But we have
but
free
you
subscribe.
can't
Yeah,
blame them because it's, they're in really distress over there in a lot of ways, but don't fall for the scams, folks. By the way, this is totally off of our topic a little bit, but I got scammed a little bit by somebody offering to support my efforts here out of the blue by email and said they were old school and they used paper checks. They sent me a paper check. It looked legitimate, and boom, it wasn't. So I've lost your video. There you go again. It says your internet connection
no,
is
no, no, no. I'm
unstable.
back. I'm back. Someone called. Someone called our phone here, and it knocked me off. So I'm back. I'm back. I'm sorry. What were you just saying about
I was just saying I got scammed by somebody sending me a paper check by, insured and
Oh yeah,
tracked letter, and it was for more than the amount that had been discussed. So I thought that was really weird. And
yeah.
so
I get a lot of
don't
that
let
stuff.
yourself be led into those things. It's
No,
my
lots of
message to the
scams out there.
world.
Lots of scams, especially when we're on like this. All of them. We're in 50 U. All 50 U.S. states. We have free subscribers in 127 countries. So It's really, it's great. We're on every continent we're at, and that's very exciting. And you are exciting. I watch you. I like to see where you're going next in the city that I once lived in,
Well,
Washington
it's
D.C.
if you've got a place you want me to go, one of the things I wanted to do with you, David, and we've got 3 minutes to discuss it, is harrowing the streets with David A. Andelman. Whereas we'll be live like this. I'll be walking down the street. I'll swing the camera around, and you'll tell me where to go and what to see,
Uh,
and also we can talk about well, what do we make of this? And I've got all these organizations around me, right? Like
how
Connecticut.
close do you get to the White House?
Oh, I'm right up the block, right? I'm on S Street
Uh,
Northwest.
okay.
Connecticut Avenue runs right
Right.
down to the White House, right? And I'm at where Connecticut and Florida cross.
And what is that? Is it the transportation department that has this huge banner of picture of Trump on its facade that it just unveiled the other day? That would be interesting to see.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Department of
I
Transportation.
think it's transport. Yeah.
Oh my God, Pete Buttigieg, who was our last secretary
It's a
under
big change.
Biden, must be rolling over and or really twisting on that one. Oh
Okay.
my gosh. Well, it's
Yeah.
been great having you. Again,
Well, and I always enjoy talking with you, Hal. It's you're unique, and that's terrific. And so am I, for
well,
that matter.
you are indeed. If you don't know who David A. Andelman is yet, please go to Andelman Unleashed and find out all about it. Again, a paid subscription will get you a lot there, a lot more than I can give right now. So, yeah, I think you've been incredibly generous, and that
Oh, no, no, no. I'm always happy to talk to you, Al, and we'll build you an audience as well, I hope. So that would be good.
all right. And I'll see you
All right.
Friday, probably.
Thank you again. Take care,
All
Al,
right.
and
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay.
Hit the end live video.